Leeds International School, Primary 2, Second Term, Science, Lesson number 4, Changing Materials. Objectives. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to know how the shapes of materials can be changed by squashing, bending, twisting, or stretching. Explore and describe how some materials change when they are heated or cooled. Recognize that some materials can dissolve in water. How can materials change? Materials can be found all around us. We eat bread spread with butter, drink iced tea, draw on a pieces of paper, or play with sand in a sand pit. Materials around us can undergo changes. Bread that is toasted becomes brown and crispy. Butter left in the open goes soft. Ice cubes in a tea disappear. Paper can be folded into a paper aeroplane. Sand can be made into a sand castle. Materials can change in many different ways. They can change in shape. Modeling clay can be molded into many different shapes. They can remain the same material but change from one form into another that looks quite different. Some of the ice cubes in the glass have become water. Materials can also change into new materials. When new materials are formed, they cannot return to their original form. Paper burns to form a new material called ash. How can forces change materials? We can use a force to change the shape of a material. Some materials can be stretched. A balloon stretches when you blow into it. An elastic band stretches when you pull it. Some materials can be twisted. String can be twisted to make bracelets. Down can be twisted into shapes. Some materials can be folded or bent. Paper can be bent and folded into different shapes. A straw can be bent to make drinking from a cup easier. Other materials can be squashed. A sponge can be squashed to squeeze out water. Dun can be squashed with a rolling pin to flatten it. How can heat change materials? When a material is heated, it may change. Heat can come from the sun, a flame, or from hotter surroundings. With heat, a material can change from one form into another. A material which is a solid can change into a liquid form. Solid into a liquid. We say it melts. Solid into a liquid form, we say it melts. A bar of chocolate melts after it is heated over a flame. A piece of butter melts after it is placed in the hotter surroundings. Under the sun, a snowman melts to become water. Water, when heated, can change into steam and goes into the air. Steam goes into the air. Heat can also turn a material into another material with different properties. Clay is soft. It can be molded, bent or squashed. When clay is heated or baked, the heat changes the clay. Baked clay is hard. It cannot be bent or squashed. It is waterproof, so it can be used to contain water. It breaks easily when dropped. Paper can be bent and crumpled easily. It can be of any color. When paper catches fire, it turns into a different material called ash, which is black material. Food changes when it is cooked. After being heated in the oven, the done becomes a bread. Cooking is a way of changing some foods so that they become safe to eat. The chicken flesh becomes white and juicy after it is baked in an oven. The egg becomes solid after it is fried on a pan. How can cooling change materials? Heating can change material. So can cooling. Some materials change from one form into another form of the same material when heated. These materials turn into the original form when cooled. When cooled, steam becomes water. When cooled, water becomes ice, which is solid. When cooled in a refrigerator, liquid chocolate becomes solid chocolate. When cooled in a freezer, fruit juice becomes popsicles. When cooled in a refrigerator, liquid jelly mixture becomes firm but wobbly. How can water change materials? Some materials change when they are mixed with water. When dry sand gets wet, the tiny grains stick together. Wet sand can be molded to form different shapes. The same goes for the flour. When water is added, it becomes sticky. Sticky done can be stretched, twisted, folded, flattened. Stretched, twisted, folded, flattened. When sugar or salt mixes with water, it disappears. This change is called dissolving. Dissolving. Sugar has been added to a glass of hot water. The sugar disappears in the hot water after stirring. Instant coffee powder has been added to a glass of hot water. The instant coffee powder disappears in the hot water after stirring. Not all materials dissolve in water. If a material does not disappear in water, it does not dissolve. Sand will not dissolve in water no matter how hard we stir. What are some new materials we can get from natural materials? Some useful materials such as glass and plastic are man-made. We make them by changing natural materials. Can you guess what natural materials are used? Sand is heated with another material to make glass. Oil is used to make plastic. Plastic can be molded into all kinds of shapes. Glass and plastic are materials that can be recycled and made into something new. So, glass and plastic are man-made materials. Glass and plastic are man-made materials. Can you remember that? Very good. Recycling materials is about changing materials so that they can be used again instead of being thrown away. This will reduce the amount of rubbish and save the environment. Every day we create plenty of rubbish. So, how can we help in recycling? We can collect materials that can be recycled, and we can sort waste into their correct groups: paper, glass, metal and plastic. Now, my dear kids, you have learned how the shapes of materials can be changed by squashing, bending, twisting or stretching. How some materials change when they are heated or cooled. And now you know some materials can dissolve in water. So here's a small exercise for you to do. What causes the changes in a materials in each of the following? Choose from the box and write. Force, heating, cooling, dissolving. First one, water turning into ice cube. Number 2, a piece of ribbon tied into a bow. Ice cubes disappearing in a drink. Sugar disappearing in coffee. Ice cream becoming liquid. Bean bag changing shape when sat on. Well done! You knew all these answers. Very good.